So I want to bring on a good friend of mine, Kathryn St. John from over at Trading Central. Kathryn, what is going on?
Hey, Luke, how are you? You're looking sharp. Way to show up today.
Got, bow tie and all. We've hung out many times. You probably, can attest I'm always in a suit and bow tie.
Hey, it's no surprise you're so polished. No surprise you bring such a big audience. So good for you.
Awesome. Well, Kathryn, I am going to pass you the mic, and why don't you take us away?
All right, incredible. I just love that you brought me this topic of about finding a better way, changing the game. It's near and dear to my heart. Actually, Sean Wasserman here from the Nasdaq, who I'll introduce you to in a minute, was just asking me what Trading Central did. And I was telling him about early startup days back in 2001, finding a better way to help people with technical analysis, apply some automation to what really was sort of manual textbook activity at the time. And now acquired by Trading Central in 2016, we're serving a better way to investors through hundreds of online brokers that are our clients today. So that's pretty cool. So it can be done, finding a better way and achieving some success. So we've got two game-changing companies today, and I actually really like the contrast between Nasdaq with Sean Wasserman and his role there, and Q.ai and Stephen Mathai-Davis there. So I don't know. Let's start with Sean. How about you introduce us to your role and maybe start us out with a few points on how the exchange traded products has grown and has been changing the game.
For sure. Thanks, Kathryn. So pleasure to be here. I head up our overall index sales and business development here at Nasdaq. And so when we talk about indexes, a lot of that really comes down to providing the core ingredients or a strategy that would be the basis of investment products. So here at Nasdaq with our index group, our core strategic focus is providing indexes that would be the basis of ETFs or ETPs. We provide our indexes for all different types of investment vehicles, but that's certainly our strategic focus. And along those lines, right now we have around the world about 350 ETPs tracking our indexes with a little over 400 billion in assets under management. Of that, most people know us for the Nasdaq 100, which comprises our flagship and comprises a good portion of our business. The Qs recently just crossed 200 billion, and then we also have another around 80 billion in assets that comprise various other related types of exposures around the Nasdaq 100, but then still have a wider diversified business with around 125 billion, tracking various other related strategies, whether it be thematics or in other categories. So looking forward to the conversation today.
Yeah, no, that's really interesting. And what an incredible reach Nasdaq has through so many partners. And I know that's a big part of your role, is working with some of those partners to, I guess, take the most advantage of the capabilities, the unique capabilities that your indices and the products they can fuel offer. So I'll definitely come back to that in a minute. But first, let's meet Stephen Mathai-Davis from Q.ai. Stephen, you're full stack data scientist, and I've seen all sorts of like top 100 CEO and a few accolades like that, which is super impressive. Why don't you explain to us a little bit about your background? I know your history growing up in the field, and what you're trying to achieve with Q.ai.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm the founder and CEO of Q.ai. We're a Forbes-backed robo-investing app that's bringing AI investing, but specifically institutional-grade AI investing, to the individual investor. Yeah. So I come out of the hedge fund space, where I was working both at hedge funds, I guess, and asset management companies as a trader, analyst, and portfolio manager. And one of the things I observed was a lot of the stuff I was doing for high net worth individuals and pension funds and groups like that wasn't available to my friends. It just wasn't available to the average individual. So that became the motivation to create Q.ai, which was to bring the same investing tools, analytics, and strategies that I was building at a hedge fund or at elite asset management houses and bring it to the individual.
Yeah, so it must be interesting to keep that spirit alive with your team in terms of you recognize a gap, and there's probably some reasons why those gaps exist, and you're out there finding a way to, I don't know, apply technology, new processes, or a way that people think about how they can be served.
Yeah, I would say the most stimulating thing for me, and I think this is the case for the entire team that we have at Q.ai, is the idea of reimagining the financial product in a digital structure when we're thinking about millennial and Gen Z investors. Because if you think about a lot of younger investors today, they're now coming to a position where they're going to have serious monies to invest, and traditional Wall Street, traditional asset management is really geared towards an older demographic that's more brick and mortar, not truly digital. Here's generations that have just grown up in a digital ecosystem. And how do you reach them? And how do you create financial products that really speak to them? And that's been the challenge we've been, I guess, trying to tackle over the last 2 years. And for me personally, it's been totally exciting.
Oh, I bet. Actually, I thought it was really interesting. You had some point about mutual funds and sort of control and ownership over mutual funds. Can you tell me a little bit about that and the impact on innovation?
It's been like the revolutionary talk, when I give the speeches, if you look at the mutual fund industry today, over $21 trillion, and it's not a dead industry like some people say. It's compounding 8 to 9% per annum. Over 75% of assets are controlled by 3 mutual fund complexes. So just take a step back. 3 firms are driving the product innovation. It's one of the reasons why the asset management industry is viewed as an asset gathering business. If you talk to management, it's an asset gathering business. What's your sales and distribution? It's not product innovation. There's such a high concentration of assets. In the ETF business, 4 to 5 firms control over 90% of assets. That's a $5 trillion business that's growing close to 20% per annum. And I can get into the hedge fund business, which is the same thing.
I think that's probably pretty inspiring for your people. It gives them a little bit of a mantra on the importance of bringing a new perspective and finding new channels for people. But, then you've got a company like Nasdaq, Sean, that is sizable, that provides its products through so many different brands. And, I think there's still room for innovation, both in terms of what Nasdaq's doing with strategies. And then I guess, so where's the distinction, Sean, between where Nasdaq innovates and what innovation lies with your clients, those partners that are packaging those up and bringing them to investors?
Yeah. So as we think about bringing new products, and particularly a lot of that new product innovation and thinking is centered around kind of the ETF wrapper, is a constant, back and forth dialogue that we have, with, between our research team and, like our asset management partners, product development teams. And so, we're constantly sitting together and thinking about, ideas on the Nasdaq end, ideas on the client end of, what solutions is it that have yet to be brought to market? What are the new themes or different, like investment access points that haven't really been satisfied for investors? And how can we create a strategy? And where we're coming from on the index side is a systematic rules-based strategy as to how we could capture that.
So can you give me some examples of those, like just to make it really tangible of some of these, or at least the end product that delivers these?
Yeah. So, one of the ones that we've been really excited about that actually just recently hit its 4-year track record. The index is coming up, almost hitting its 4-year track record. The ETF has been, tracking it for about that long. Is an index strategy we have called the Nasdaq 7-handle index. It's tracked. There's an ETF in market, ticker HNDL, that tracks it. And the whole concept of it is to be able to provide like a diversified portfolio that then sits on the kind of what you call the efficient frontier when you go back to traditional CAPM analysis. And when you go back and look at that overall academic approach, you end up with the best risk-adjusted return by applying a little bit of leverage. And so what we intended to do is to create an index that had a little bit of leverage, but then would keep a steady NAV over time and pay consistent income. So the index, and in turn the ETF, has paid 7% throughout its whole time and has always kept a steady NAV. So that's like one example of just like a retirement solution that we put our heads together and figured out how we could tackle.
So those are benefits that an investor would have a hard time replicating on their own. Like I was literally walking with my husband earlier today, and he was showing me his charts with his blockchain ETF that was, went up X%, and he was excited. And we were talking about, well, why that ETF? Why that blockchain ETF versus another? And so some of those areas of risk management or asset allocation or other things that would be different, right, across these different indices or across leveraging an index-based product versus some other packaging, I guess. Are those the type of benefits that you're delivering?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we're coming from the index side of designing either a strategy or like a portfolio in an index that people can then access via different vehicles. The ETF being a very efficient vehicle that people could basically go on and buy just like a single stock. So, the growth of the ETF industry has certainly been huge over the last couple of decades, eating into a lot of that more legacy, mutual fund business, as we were kind of speaking about before. And it's interesting to see kind of the evolving landscape as well in terms of the, the start and more kind of rise of, Stephen, what you were mentioning of, more of, SMAs and some of the benefits of that. We're certainly working with different providers and starting to figure out how we can provide our indexes via those types of vehicles as well. Just as the same, we provide our indexes in access points via structured notes or within annuity products. It really kind of runs the gamut where we're focused on providing an innovative strategy and then providing access. And historically, ETFs has definitely been a very successful and efficient way of investors being able to access those strategies.
So speaking of sort of the end package, Stephen, you have to tell us about kits. And specifically, like I want to get into some of the branding strategy and the tonality with retail investors and how important that is to what Q.ai offers.
Sure.
But you also had some opinions, and maybe we'll do this in two parts. You also had some points about, in what areas do investors want to engage and be active on, and in what areas do they want to apply automation and have some assistance. And so let's start with, tell us about kits. Like, isn't there a Santa Claus kit coming up or something?
Yeah, there is. No, we call our products investment kits. And like Sean talked about, what we're really focused on are separately managed accounts, or SMAs, where each customer or user of Q.ai is controlling a brokerage account. Now, this is just Fintech 101. But what we've tried to do is take our kits, which are more or less strategies or portfolio strategies that someone buys into. And it's all thematic based, and it's all part of our thesis about kind of executable interactive content, meaning I choose a piece of content that I like, and in the case of Fintech, I can just execute or implement it right away.
Right.
I'm interested in the Santa Claus rally, so holiday shopping going into the holidays. How do I play it? I don't want to go buy a bunch of stocks. Also don't want to go buy the retail ETF.
It connects with people too, right? The certain tonality. I see a lot of traditional online brokers sort of grappling with this, wanting to, trying to balance, teaching investors the language of the industry versus connecting with them on, a topical theme or some sort of strategy they've heard and how that's named and referred to. So I think it's really interesting that you're trying to connect to them in that way.
A younger investor, right? Which is, I'll buy a kit. Now, what goes into the kit? The kit really is just a dynamically managed strategy. So they're using Santa Claus kit. It's not as if the holdings don't change. They're constantly changing, adapting depending on returns in the markets as well as managing the market volatility. But the users already just decide, hey, I just want to be playing this theme or trend. So the kits themselves represent themes. And what a user is doing is, as opposed to building a portfolio of stocks, they're really just building a portfolio of themes. Mm-hmm. Similar to the way elite hedge fund managers and some of the elite long-only managers manage towards, because it's not really building a portfolio around just holdings. You're actually looking at themes within your portfolio and what we call in the business sleeves. And that's really what our investment kits represent. So it's, in some ways, it's democratizing access to these tools, but making it accessible in a way that people can relate to. So I want to be in Santa Claus. I want to be in clean tech.
Yeah.
I want to be in a value vault kit. I want to mix it up. Maybe I'll throw in precious metals. Or I'll play the infrastructure spending.
Such versatile packaging compared to the kind of the traditional sector or asset class or.
Totally. And for us, we're doing all the risk management because what we found, just touching on the behavior of younger investors, and this is in contrast to traditional baby boomers, they want to have a more active say in the asset allocation, meaning I want my monies to go to specific themes or trends. They don't want to risk manage. And our value proposition really is behind the scenes. We're doing all the risk management. You're just choosing what kit or what theme you want to be in.
But are there alternative ways to manage risk or get those other benefits for the same theme, or you sort of make that decision and that's fully offloaded to Q.ai?
Right now, it's going to be, we will manage the risk within the kits.
Yeah.
Down the road, we're going to try to introduce different types of management, whether it be more aggressive, more conservative.
Right. Neat.
Now,
neat. I always like to hear a little bit about what's to come too, right? Like where are we today and what's to come? So I don't know if Q.ai uses third-party indices like those offered at Nasdaq, or is it entirely built by your teams, reading all those books behind you, perhaps? Or I don't know.
Right now, they're built by the team, but we're exploring different partnerships as well.
Okay, neat. And Sean, you're out there. So you're out there working with firms, whether or not it's Q.ai, but other firms, whether they're robos, whether they're sort of incumbent online brokers, perhaps neo brokers as well, helping them deliver value through the products that you're offering, right?
Yeah, exactly. So that's where it's been interesting to see some of the growth of some of the access points, like Stephen's firm is kind of bringing to the table, where we're focused on providing kind of the best strategies and going back to thematics. That's certainly one of our kind of key areas of focus, where we seek to be able to try to define the companies, and along with which ones you're selecting and how you're weighting them, that would express a certain theme. So like some of the ways that we think about going about that is going and finding some of the best, kind of third-party research firms that will be have a specialized expertise in a certain area to help define kind of what companies are comprising that. So, a few of the partners that we have in some of the products out there as examples is an organization we've worked with for many years, almost 15 years now, called Clean Edge, led by Ron Pernick. Where one of the very successful products we had, which really started to take off over the last few years, was our Nasdaq Clean Edge Green Energy Index. It's tracked by an ETF, ticker QCLN by First Trust.
Nice.
And the important part, with kind of bringing out themes, and particularly then in facilitating then investment products coming to market, is to be able to define them early on in in their development. So you don't want to be kind of too late in the game and be able to define and capture a theme as it's kind of hitting that inflection point of where there's enough companies that are coming out of the private markets to then be able to have enough public companies to have a diversified enough portfolio for an investment product. So that's where we're constantly working with specialty kind of research providers and trying to identify what some of those next themes are.
Yeah. So it must be interesting though, because once you're offering those themes, robos like Q.ai or those that are working with Nasdaq products, they must have different capabilities in terms of their ability to notify their clients or keep them up to date, or otherwise somehow package up and express the unique benefits of these different products. I mean, are you seeing some partners of yours going further with sort of taking advantage of all those benefits, and some that are lagging? Like, do you see a kind of spread in the
Yeah, everyone's involved in education in some way. We've been quite pleased with kind of the engagement for a lot of our partners. Invesco and First Trust, Global X, Victory Capital, just to name a few. Both us from the index end and then our asset management partners, are constantly thinking through what research can we publish, how can we be kind of telling the story of what it comprises the index, which then is also then comprising the investment product and how it could fit in the client's portfolio. But then it also goes kind of further upstream as well in terms of the platforms, like the different the conversation we're having today, the great kind of role in education that all the different players will have, and trying to raise the awareness of the different products and strategies that are out there.
Yeah, I mean, I can't help but think of research tools and feeds and notifications and all of these services that can almost do like do justice or serve well all these capabilities that Nasdaq is really working hard to produce. And so I guess you must have some sort of influence role over some of the partners that you're working on, whereas Stephen, like, you're directly involved in flattening the chain, almost like vertical integration of like, how do we take the content and deliver that? How does, I'm head of UX at Trading Central, right? So the workflow, the journey that you're expecting to track people through matters in adoption. And, how do you guys work through some of that, or what are some of the sort of investor experience highlights that your team is proud of?
Yeah, so, we just rolled out a brand new UI UX that ironically is inspired by the Tesla experience for people who drive Teslas. Where it was all first principles, because first principles designed, at least from the UX perspective, because how do you take everything I just talked about, which is a bunch of different types of investment kits, then more of themselves thematic based? How do you introduce educational content, because we have a massive there, and bring it into one app where the user is not overwhelmed?
Yeah, that's
and obviously when we're looking at returns, you're not looking at just time-weighted returns, you're looking at money-weighted returns and other types of factors. How do you communicate that to the user that they should be looking at every single metric I just talked about? And for us, that's been the big challenge with UX, trying to simplify it. So I find finance too much of the time is obfuscates really basic concepts.
Yeah.
A little bit of, self-preservation there, because you want to show how important you are to justify the fees. I can show my cynicism coming up as that. But, how do you take that and simplify it and make it more accessible? Because that's what our goal is.
Yeah, it's a tricky business because, I think, some of the conversations I've had with our clients around sort of like snackable education, Sean, you were talking about the importance of education and how do you bring people along so they can discover how you're changing the game and they can really fully take advantage of it. So while the technology, whether it's in-house at Q.ai or through partnerships with the Nasdaq, so you've got those capabilities, but to actually deliver value to the end user, it's really about how, are we really bringing that to life in a way that can have adoption? And so Sean, what do you think is left to be done? I think exchange traded products has come a long way, and excited to hear about some of the work you guys are doing in crypto on custody and making that product more accessible in such a regulated space. Like, is there more to do there? What other areas do you want to highlight where there's more work to be done, whether it's by your partners or by Nasdaq directly?
Thanks for bringing that up. It's a couple of areas. I mean, one, in general, we feel like that there's still a lot more white space to be filled in the use of options, within investment products. So we've had a great track record of success with Global X on the ETF that we have, ticker QYLD. I mean, it has like an 11% yield, and it's something that is just very simple.
Which one was that? Just because we're nearing the end, so I like these little sound bites.
Oh yeah, it's ticker QYLD. Where basically you have Nasdaq 100, and you're selling basically a covered call. But with that, we've been working on expanding that lineup of all different ways of using options within the ETF wrapper, to provide different defined payouts or kind of ways of accessing the index. But the others you mentioned, is crypto, and that's even going back to some of the basic kind of investor education, something that we'll be kind of focused on, particularly coming into next year, of kind of understanding kind of the asset class, and particularly what we started to do on the index end in the space is launching an index. So back in earlier this year in February, we launched the Nasdaq Crypto Index, which we worked with a firm down in Brazil in launching actually the first basket crypto ETF in the world. It's actually it's the third highly traded ETF on B3, and now we're working here in the U.S. with Victory Capital, who's offering a private placement that's tracking the index.
Oh gosh, we got to wrap up soon. But Stephen, how about crypto at Q.ai? Or I'd love to hear just a little bit more about backing by Forbes and maybe how some of those relationships are impacting your strategy to reach investors.
Yeah, talking about crypto for a second, we're actually releasing our first crypto-only product or crypto-only kit this week, which is going to be a managed quantitative crypto investing kit where folks can just invest into digital assets.
Nice.
And our AI algos manage the risk there. So it's a great way to get your toes into the water if you're trying to figure out whether or not you should be in crypto. Just the tab itself, that's a great way, at least the way we thought about it, is looking at the addressable market today, saying, how do you double it? The only way you double is you make it easier for people to begin to invest, not tell them to go buy Bitcoin, Ethereum on Coinbase, but make products that are easier for them to.
Yeah, not necessarily in a separate place where you have to go and engage and do that. So
that's one of the major innovations we're doing there. And, with Forbes, who's our strategic backer, the whole opportunity for us has been to work with one of the leading financial companies in the world, financial media companies in the world, to bring product and content, or in our case, interactive executable content, to a massive .com audience.
Yeah, really focused on reaching more people, serving new expectations. And I love the sort of almost interoperability of how we can move from one product or one brand to the other. So thanks both, Stephen and Sean, for introducing us to game-changing work at Nasdaq and Q.ai. Really a pleasure to meet you both.
Thank you.
It's been a pleasure.
All right. Thank you, Kathryn, for doing that. Well done as always.